Okay, welcome. So, cannabis. Who would have ever thought that I'd be standing on a podium talking about Martha Stewart and cannabis in the same sentence? But a few days ago, Martha announced that she's teaming up with a Canadian cannabis company to help create pot treats for pets. Coca-Cola says it's developing a soft drink that will be infused with cannabis. The drug, once vilified as a gateway to heroin and cocaine, is now being heralded as a treatment for illness and disease, including opioid addiction. In case you haven't noticed, we're in the midst of a revolution, and this is ground zero. Israel is the marijuana research capital of the world. What better place to hear from scientists, business leaders, and investors in the field of cannabis? But let's start with three people who say marijuana treatments have changed their lives. So, Riley COTE. He's a former National Hockey League player and cannabis advocate. Abigail Dar is the mother of an autistic son. And Ben GOOR-LEVY is a veteran and co-founder of Fighters for Life. Okay. Here's my... Anybody know how to, is this on? Okay. Okay, so first we'll hear from Riley.
All right. So my name is Riley COTE. I'm originally from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. And yeah, got some Canadians in the house. Like all Canadian children, you play some sort of hockey, whether it's street hockey, pond hockey, or the standard ice hockey, and I landed up playing all of them. Hockey was ingrained in my DNA from the time I was 2 years old. I can remember, and it's been a huge part of my life, obviously. And growing up in Winnipeg, I eventually moved on to the junior ranks at the age of 16 years old. It was right around the time where I was introduced to cannabis, and for the first time in a very recreational setting. That was the start of my relationship with cannabis, even though I had no idea what I was doing and what I was consuming. It resonated with me. It resonated with me through my whole junior hockey career, and then I really started identifying how it was helping me when I turned pro and signed up to get punched in the face for a living. So that was the job I signed up for when I turned pro. For you that are familiar with the hockey game, there was enforcers back in the day. It's kind of evolved out of the game now, but self-policing, momentum building. There was a place to protect your teammates and keep the peace. And when I started fighting regularly, is when I really started to identify how cannabis helped with my anxiety and sleep. And that was that was back in 2001. So I used cannabis through my whole pro career. I eventually moved up the ranks and found my way to the NHL. Played 4 years in the Philadelphia Flyers, and then I retired in 2010 with a laundry list of injuries and some residuals from concussions. I was 28 years old. At that time, I just got into everything holistic, and everything that I read and researched seemed to always come back to the cannabis plant in one way, shape, or form. I really got interested into the whole cannabis plant from the nutritional profile of the hemp seed, understanding the protein content, the omega-3 content. So my relationship previously was, on more of a, recreational level, but it was a very therapeutic level and a medicinal level as well. Then all of a sudden I had an understanding of the nutritional profile of the hemp seed. It kind of opened up my mind to this whole other dimension of the cannabis plant, and then dipping my head down different rabbit holes, I started to identify with this is an absolute healing plant. Then I mindfully got introduced to CBD oil around 2012 and 2013, started taking CBD oil specifically for my concussion TBI. I've been over 250 hockey fights, and knowing that the cannabinoids had been patented by the US government as neuroprotectant and antioxidants, it seemed fitting for me to mindfully consume these cannabinoids to hopefully slow down the aging process and you know, and kind of dial back the damage that I had caused. So the focus I wanted to really focus on here was is cannabis as a pain management tool. We'll talk about physical pain, we'll talk about emotional pain. But clearly, I think throughout history, cannabis has been known as arguably the best pain reliever on the planet, and rightfully so. I mean, there's no dependency or addiction that comes along with it, and it really does help with all levels of pain. And I have a slide here about the opioid crisis, and it's very, very real, and I've seen it through the lens of the sports world and how many guys it's affected in my world. It's very dark, and you know, to me, cannabis is a solution. I think in 2016, it was 42,000 deaths. It's 115 a day, and that's just opioid related. That doesn't account for the people that started with opioids and landed up taking street heroin, and then eventually, you know, got swallowed up with that destructive substance. So, again, cannabis being the alternative to the opioid crisis. And then getting into the physical pain, acute pain, surgery, all these physical pains, obviously it can help with in some way, shape, or form. This is about increasing quality of life.
Maybe we can talk about that a little bit more.
Okay.
Abigail?
Hi, I'm Abigail. I'm the mother of Yuval. Yuval is a severely autistic young man. He's 25 years old. I'm also a board member of ALLEVIATE, which is the Israeli Society for people with kids with autism. And as I'm saying, I'm the mother who set the fire here in Israel, getting over 1,500 kids treated with medical cannabis, severely autistic kids. I will start with my personal story because this is where I come from. Though we already have a center, a specialist center, which treats hundreds of kids because cannabis is complicated. But autism is also complicated. It's a very broad spectrum with a lot of comorbidities. And one thing that is mutual to all the kids, also mine, is anxiety. Very high level of anxiety. When you live in a world which is not clear to you, when you don't understand, when you can't verbalize what you feel or what you want, that means a lot of anxiety. This anxiety with our kids, a lot of time appears in a way of outbursts, of self-injurious behaviors. No mother likes to say, my son beats me. I love my son. Until 4 years ago when he started cannabis, I was afraid to be alone with him. I couldn't drive in a car with him. He was treated with a lot of antipsychotic medications. Autism is unmet medical need. They treat our kids from very young age with antipsychotic medication, which a lot of time do more harm than good. If medications were working for my son, I would stay there. It just doesn't work. And once he got cannabis, he's still very autistic. It's not a magic that takes it away, but it does change his quality of life and ours. Yet, as I treat or help hundreds of kids, we know there's no one strain or one product that fits them all. Autism is complicated, cannabis is complicated, and we need much more research done to be more accurate in what we give to which subgroup in this very wide group of neurodevelopmental delays.
Okay, now Ben GOOR.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Ben GOOR LEVY, a post-traumatic veteran from IDF. I grew up in Tel Aviv, happy family, you know, like many other Israeli guys. I had to join the army, the infantry, when I became 18. And I started 3 years of a lot of firefight activities, and was witnessing a lot of terror attacks on me and on my friends as well. And well, in the first 3 years, I didn't really realize something is happening with me. It erupted only after, I finished the army when I was 21, went traveling for a few years and came back to Israel. And in 2006, I went back to the army, to the Second Lebanon War. A war which was very bad for us, but for me, I came back like as a hero. I had a combat with the terrorists that nobody saw, and because I had the courage to shoot him, another terrorist came out from his hide, and they planned to make a terror attack on the first convoy at that night. And so I was like, a hero in the war, came back home, and I had a lot of articles in the newspapers and TV, and I wasn't feeling like a hero. I was like very angry, I started drinking every night, go out fighting with people on the streets, arguing with my family. Nobody really understood me. And I got this fear that God wants to end my life. Yeah, it's like I've been a bad person, I killed people in the war, and so it haunted me. And imagine when you're like 1.5 months, every second you hear a bullet next to you or a bomb explode next to you, so you get locked on this like survival mode, and I'm about to die. Every second, I'm about to die. So when I came back, the therapy that I had was some psychiatrist sessions and psychotherapies, and a lot of pills, many pills, which made me kind of numb, and I couldn't really being myself in the everyday, and I work with online marketing, so it's a lot of numbers, and I just found myself that I can't do my job properly. So that's what I felt after being treated with the psychiatrist pills and the usual treatments. I was feeling quite bad with myself. Till the day I met medical cannabis, and since then my life became much nicer. I got my self-confidence back. I started teaching my profession in schools. I even established a charity foundation for post-traumatic soldiers with my friend Ido Galazon. Our foundation is here to help and finance PTSD veterans, and to help them getting all the rights they need, and we even finance their legal sue in order to get their rights. We also do some activities for post-traumatic soldiers, like sailing every Sunday, teaching them how to sail, and so this is Lochamim Lachim. Sorry, I'm a bit excited with this session. And, well, the main thing is that now with no pills, and I'm on the cannabis, but my life changed completely. I can work, I do productive things for the environment, for the community. I'm not fighting anymore like I used to be, and I can be here as a responsible person and take care for my kids. And the funniest thing is that after you get it as a medicine, it changes completely what you think about it and how you use it before.
Can we just stop there for a second?
Thanks. Take care.
So maybe we can all talk about this one issue. Is who prescribed you? Who prescribed the drug, and how did they determine the doses? Maybe we can have a discussion about that. Yeah.
Well, for me, up until last year, everything was bought in the black market. I mean, I wasn't a registered patient, so a doctor in Pennsylvania got me a medical card for pain. So that was my introduction to legal cannabis in the last year. Mm-hmm. But up until then, it was figuring this thing out on my own.
So you figured it out on your own. And Abigail?
I was lucky because the psychiatrist that helped us get the access, when I said to him, okay, now we got the access, what do I give you, Val? He said, I don't know. He was specializing in PTSD. He didn't understand autism by then, and I have to go and look for myself. So I was based on what kids with epilepsy got here in Israel, but it was 4 years ago, and since then we learned so much more about autism, which it's a voyage. It's not like I found exactly how much and what.
For me also, the psychiatrists that were treating me, they didn't believe in cannabis. So for 5 years, I was asking for it. I said that I know it can help.
But you had heard that you should be taking cannabis? Somebody had told you that?
Yeah, I heard from other people that use it, that it helps them. So I asked my psychiatrist, and they said, no, we don't know this medicine. We didn't learn about it in school. Yeah, so we don't give it to you. And then a friend called me one day and said, yeah, there is this doctor in Haifa. You go to him, and he's pro-cannabis, and he will...
It's the same doctor.
Yeah, so the same doc. So yeah, I went to him, and 3 months later, I noticed that I got my license, and from that moment on, wow, my life really changed. Unreal.
Okay. Do you know which cannabinoids are in your dose or in your cannabis?
Do I know? Yes. But I'm unique because I have access to lab tests, so I can analyze the strains we give. So basically, we do have an idea. But if on the package of what we get here in Israel, it only says what strain at the moment and how much CBD and THC, or CBN, which means not a lot.
Okay. What about you? Did you know anything about that?
I didn't know previous to the medical cannabis program, so now everything is identified with percentages of, the two major cannabinoids, THC and CBD, and then some minor ones. And also the terpenes, they do list those as well. But up until then, I had no idea.
Okay. Do you have a better idea now or no?
Well, yeah, I have a better idea now because now it's listed on my packaging.
So it's sort of was a trial and error?
Yeah, up until then. I mean, when you're buying cannabis in the black market, there is no packaging. You know what I mean? You figure it out yourself. And, I wasn't introduced to the science of these cannabinoids until I retired, in 2010. So there was no legal program in Pennsylvania.
How it seems like everybody's sort of fooling around with how much to take themselves.
Well, I think
at least
it's
in the United States.
Yeah, well, it's individualized medicine. I mean, we're all different. Everyone's either got different biochemistry. Some are on pharmaceuticals, some are not. So there is no one-size-fits-all approach. There is some sort of trial and error with this.
So, like we say in the United States, it's still kind of the Wild West of.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I mean, you have to be willing to try it. You start off with a recommended dosage. If it doesn't work, you either increase it or you titrate. I mean, there is an element of self-experimentation with it. I mean, there has to be. All across the world, we're not going to be taking the same amount of cannabis to find a solution for all the same exact problems.
Yeah, and
it's. I think you said it's like the Wild West. Yeah. I think it's also the same for psychiatric pills, because I remember going to my psychiatrist and every time I said, okay, he played the roulette, it's like the slot machine. Maybe this one, try it for a few days and tell me how you feel.
Yeah.
So it's more or less like this, As Riley said, it's like it depends on the person himself. And I can tell you, I smoke sativa and for 4 years already. And in the past 2 years, I smoke it with no tobacco. We Israelis have a stupid habit to mix it with tobacco. We think we will save, you know, but the smart thing is when you take the tobacco out, you smoke less. And so me, for the past 3 years, I smoke without tobacco. I even smoke less than what I used to smoke before. And now for 1.5 months, there were problems with renewing my license. So I found myself buying on the black market. And it's like, if you buy it on the black market, like for $1,000 a month, when you buy it from license, it's $100 here. So it's crazy.
In what form? I'm just curious.
I get it flowers, yeah? But the thing is that I didn't smoke my sativa that I used to smoke now for 1.5 months.
I think our time's up. Finish the sentence.
Yeah, so everything changed, okay? I felt my life was going back down, yeah, when I didn't have my sativa. I didn't know it will be like that, but it really affects, you know? It's like, it puts you on a wave.
Okay. Thank you, guys. That's it.
Can I say?
That's it. I'm good. Okay. So now we're going to introduce the scientists and the entrepreneurs. We have MICAH TAPMAN, who's the managing partner at the 730 Opportunity Fund from Boulder, right? TAMIR GEDO, the CEO of BOL Pharma, who actually has an amazing greenhouse of cannabis. And Peter Shaw, chairman of the board at EdenShield, and Professor INBAR MAYMON POMERANCHIK, who is, what do you want? What? Doctor, not professor. Doctor, sorry. All right, so MICAH.
Yeah, I'll step over here so I can see my slides a little bit better. Welcome everybody. My name is MICAH TAPMAN. I'm the Managing Director of the 730 Opportunity Fund. I'm going to give a little bit of context here for this conversation around the business elements behind this cannabis revolution. So that timeline that we all saw on the amazing video that opened this session today starts with prohibition. And the United States led the world in this draconian policy way back when, 1930s. So the war on drugs really started in those 70s, and then California really took off with medical cannabis in 1995, passing it, and it actually became implemented in 96. That was jump-started when Colorado fully legalized recreational and medical cannabis in 2012, and since then the world has seen a revolution in legal cannabis access around the world. Canada, Uruguay, fully legal at the federal levels. This is now common sense to see legalization. The stories that we just heard from Riley, from Abigail, from lots of other people are driving this change, and support is nearly universal. Among almost everybody out there surveyed, something like 90% of people say if somebody needs access to medical cannabis, they should have legal access to medical cannabis. So it's a changing world. We only see about 1/3 of the people saying they reject cannabis in general. This is a complete reversal from just 30 years ago. 80 years of stagnation, right? What's been going on? Well, research funding wasn't allowed to go to the labs to do development of medical cannabis research. Right? Israel led the way with this because they did allow research funding to go to those great scientists and really lead the way. In the US, however, almost half of federal funding or university funding comes from the federal government. And what this meant was that our best scientists were not researching cannabis and have not been. In fact, they're still not researching in federal labs in the US, largely because of this prohibition. States like California have led the way by funding research at places like UCLA, which now has over 40 PhDs researching the cannabis plant and different uses. What this means is it's emerging science. We have 80 plus years of pent-up scientific knowledge from other industries. The discovery of ibuprofen came after the banning of cannabis, right? So think about that. Instead of taking an Advil, an ibuprofen for your pain, you might actually be taking a cannabinoid-based drug in just another decade or so. Now, this change comes about because of stories. Stories like we heard from Abigail, from Riley, from lots of other folks, right? We've seen this throughout history, right? The power to change comes from stories, from narratives. There was a great talk yesterday at the VIP session talking about how entrepreneurs, in particular, drive change with a story that changes our perception of the world. Right? This happened back with slavery. Uncle Tom's Cabin was a huge storytelling success to change people's perceptions about slavery. We're seeing the same stories come out about medical cannabis. The UK went from being strongly anti-cannabis to approving medical marijuana in just 6 months because of one simple story. Now, that change is sustained by financial success. Right? We live in a capitalistic world where money is what sustains our success. And we're seeing the growth of the industry, 26% compound annual growth, one of the fastest growing industries in the world. Now, this is driven by those stories of change, but the reason the change will maintain is because of all the money flowing into various businesses and governments through taxation. And we're seeing this around the world. Cannabis versus opioids. This is a really interesting one because opioids have been an epidemic. As Riley mentioned earlier, too many people are hooked on opioids, mainly for pain management, when they could be using alternatives, such as cannabinoid-based products. And that's been an epidemic throughout not just the US, but the whole world. Another interesting one, cannabis versus alcohol. And this is often talked about. Is cannabis going to replace alcohol? Generally speaking, the answer is we're not really sure yet, but we think not. Mainly because people view cannabis and alcohol as two very different substances, appropriate for different use cases in different times and places. An obvious example is if you're at a business dinner, it's probably acceptable to have a glass of wine, but it's not acceptable to consume cannabis right now. Why is that? Largely because of dosage problems. And Barbara asked some questions about that earlier. How do you know what dose to take? The answer is you don't, because we don't know the science behind dosing for cannabis yet. Why? Because we haven't done the research yet. Israel is leading the way with that medical research. The US is now following with that funding going into places like UCLA. But the reality is we're still years away from true prescription-based cannabinoid medicines for things like pain management, because we need to see those clinical trials. And that'll help drive some of the adoption here. Products like this are coming on market. This was introduced in Colorado in August. They are essentially breath mints you put under your tongue. They dissolve in about 20 seconds. They are microdosing products. They allow you to dial in the exact dosage you might want or need. They range from a 10-to-1 CBD to sort of the opposite with a THC effect. Really revolutionary product, and it's actually solving a problem I've been watching for the last 5+ years of investing in this sector and watching the growth of the Colorado market over time. With that, I'll leave you and turn it back over to Barbara. Thank you.
TAMIR?
Yep, no. Yes? Okay. My name is TAMIR. I came into this space roughly 6 years ago. I didn't think very highly on this space, and I met one of the entrepreneurs which went and had one of the 8 original growers in Israel. And he was trying to convince me that he is doing Pharma. And I met a couple of other growers, and they tried to convince me that they are committing clinical trials. And I asked him, do you have any GMP, good manufacture procedures? And he said, no, but I have good smoking practices. Well, I saw the opportunity. There was a huge gap between what they tried to claim and what was in reality, and the market is still in its inception, and nobody really understands the business models which are going to prevail in this market in the next couple of years, and I think a lot of mistakes are being done as we speak. Companies are buying, investors are investing billions of dollars. We saw in the slide presentation, which was, by the way, very impressive, Canopy Growth, which installation invested $4-point-something billion. You know, and it reminds me all the stories of the bubbles which occurred in the 90s and before. And in each one of those bubbles, a lot of companies and investors invested so much money, and 99% of this money went to the sewer. And most likely that's going to happen in this current industry. A lot of people are going to cry because there is a huge difference, and I'm sorry to be the one which is, you know, saying those pessimistic words, but somebody needs to stare into the truth and say things as they are, okay? Right now, how do I... okay, sophisticated. Now, there are a couple of real challenges in this industry. This industry is not scalable right now as it is. It's not a global industry, it's a local domestic industry. The companies in the States, the companies in Canada are more recreational oriented. None of them has any GMP, okay? I met a lot of my colleagues, so to speak, in the United States and Canada, and I toured some of the biggest facilities in the country. And when I met those guys, I felt like I'm going into one of HBO movies or series. I forgot the name. Yes, exactly, that was the name. And you see a guy which is running between the machines, between the extractor machines, between the drying machines. One guy, and I asked him, this is a very impressive business, which was like third of this hall. What is your, where are you coming with that from? What's your occupation? What did you learn? He said, listen, Tamir, to be honest, I was a real estate agent. And then there was the meltdown. And then I tried to buy a franchise for pizza and for coffee shops. And none of them were very successful. And while I was sitting with my wife in agony on the porch and thinking about what's the next move, all of a sudden I saw Jesus. It appeared to me, and I understood where I should go to. And he started this business, and it's a mom and pop shop, and it's a very highly generated revenue business, I think almost $2 million. He's not investing too much. He bought second-hand machinery. He doesn't even know what GMP stands for, or GAP, or ISO. I think he heard about ISO. He said, one day I will have time to read about this, okay? And the problem in this industry is that there is a lack of consistency in the products which are being made and being sold all over the countries in North America, Canada, in the United States, and Europe. In the morning, regardless if you are smoking, inhaling, or titrating, you are getting one dose in the afternoon, another dose in the evening, a third dose, and there isn't any really connection between those products because the plant is a plant. And even with the same plant, on the right-hand side and the left-hand side, you can have 200% differences between the active ingredients. So one dose is going to make you feel very good. One dose is going to make you feel even better. The third dose won't make you feel anything. And the fourth dose will give you...
Tamir?
Yes.
We talk about that.
It's not the 60 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is, thank you. So this is one challenge, lack of consistency. The second challenge is lack of bioavailability. These active ingredients, you need to consume 60 grams, only 4 or 5 grams goes into your bloodstream. which means a huge problem in terms of side effect profile. I will speak very fast. The third one is scalability, lack of scalability. This is domestic industry. All the companies in Canada combined, 142 licensed producers, are striving to produce 90 tons per year when the local consumption is more than 600 tons, recreational and medical as whole. They are all saying already for 2 years that they're going to scale up. They cannot scale up, and those are the real challenges of the industry. Right now, it's a mom and pop shop without any regulation, and just, I would say it in my next speech at 3 o'clock, which I hope you will hear that, we have some ways to solve this problem, and in Israel, according to the new regulations, we managed to solve at least a big chunk of those problems, and I think this is the way the market needs to go to. When you're doing GMP real pharma cultivation and production coupled with clinical trials in order to build a sub-industry of the pharmaceutical big industry. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Is this working? Okay, Peter.
Hello? Great. Nice to be here. Thank you. I'm Peter Shaw. I'm chairman of EdenShield, and kind of presenting something a little different today. In fact, if I had known how moving that first group was, I would have actually given up my time because I think that was way more interesting. Thank you. But you know, the old story for us Americans or entrepreneurs, whatever, was, you know, that we talk about why did Jesse James rob banks? Because that's where the money was. And who made money in the gold rush? It wasn't the panhandlers. It was the guys that sold picks and shovels and developed Levi jeans. And what EdenShield does is we provide the picks and shovels for indoor cannabis growers. Okay, so I don't have any samples, sorry. I don't have any samples here today. But that's kind of our mission. We're an early stage company. We're committed to creating the safest and most effective chemical plant protection solutions in the world. The company actually started not in cannabis, but it started to protect the population, the water supply, the air from dangerous chemical pesticides. It turns out now, and every good entrepreneur knows, that as the market shifts, or the financial market shifts, or where the investors want to invest, you kind of pivot a little bit in that direction and get their attention. So right now, the hot thing in agriculture is really cannabis. But keep in mind, as I talk about cannabis, and I'll try and keep my time here, although I don't have any. They said 5 minutes, it started at 3, so I'm in trouble. We basically reduce or eliminate a farmer's need for cannabis. For pesticides. And in the cannabis world, it's even more rigorous. I don't know how many of you realize that the regulations in terms of pesticides are much more rigorous for cannabis growers than they are for tomatoes. You can go home tonight and you can eat a tomato or a pepper, and it will have been treated by chemicals, pesticides that can't come near a cannabis plant. Now, maybe we understand why. I don't have a problem with them not allowing it on cannabis plants, but I sure have a problem with them allowing it on my fruits and vegetables that I eat. So we've developed a very unique system we'll talk about in a second if I don't run out of time. It's ecological, it's chemical-free, it eliminates not only the need for pesticides, but because the pests never get to the plant, I'll talk to how it does that, the pests don't transmit viruses to the plant. Part of the great damage to plants is not necessarily the pests, but it's the viruses the pests transmit. We target all of the types of pests that are detrimental to vegetables and some additional ones that are also detrimental to the cannabis plant. We are breaking this pesticide addiction because, like all addictions, you know that the more you put, the more you want, the more you want, the more you have to put, and the more you put, the more you want. and the pests start growing tolerant to pesticides. So what does the farmer do? He adds more pesticides. The regulation environment, in terms of the growth of our business, is in our favor because it's very hard to use any substances, and we are already EPA exempt in the United States. We've got approvals throughout Europe and in the Middle East. The secret is a proprietary plant extract that is grown as a weed here in the southern Israeli desert. We're the first ones to take this plant and actually cultivate it. And we have a number of kibbutzim in the south growing these plants on yearly contract basis. It's a natural plant, it's non-toxic, it's not a pesticide. And our founder realized, all these other things are getting destroyed. Why weren't these weeds or these plants being destroyed? And doing a little research, the active ingredients in the Aquileia was figured out, and we were able to bring it to production. Today we have three products. The one in the middle is probably the one of interest to this panel. It's called Eden Direct. It's a dual action product that you can actually spray. By the way, our products are used for indoor farming. We don't do open field farming at this time. But our Eden Direct product is sprayed directly on the cannabis plants. There's no residuals. You can use it up to the last day of harvest, and there's no chemical or any other kinds of residue. The way our product works is totally unique. Insects find plants, pests find plants by smell. Each plant has a unique odor, and if the insect can't smell the plant, it's not going to be attracted to it. And what our product does is it odor masks the scent of the smell, of the plant. So we can put it around the plant, around the greenhouse or around the plant environments, and the insects never find the plant, and so they never touch the plant, they don't eat the plant, and they don't transmit viruses. We have testimonials in the vegetable market where not only have the plant quality increased significantly, but the yield has increased by 30%. Can you imagine increasing cannabis yield by 30%, what that translates into dollars? We've got significant intellectual property around the world, I got it. We also have developed a lot of know-how in terms of how to develop the product. We've got three great investors. The last one is a strategic and a financial investor, Kibbutz Yotvetah, who those of you in Israel know very well. We've done really well in patenting the company, and we have initial sales around the world. And we're in the process, as all early stage companies are, in a growth mode. And we're raising money, we're adding distribution, we're doing more research for different ways to apply our materials. And thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to introduce Dr. POMERANCHIK again because I didn't do it properly before. She's a leading figure in cannabis, investment, and research.
Thank you so much. Not a professor yet, but yeah, thank you. So hello everybody, I'm INBAR MAYMON POMERANCHIK. I'm a scientist and also I am a consultant. 3 years ago I found out that there is a big gap between investment language and science language. Both of the groups are speaking in different languages and I try to fill this gap. I specialized in agri-tech, which I will be happy to elaborate later, and also in the medical cannabis field. When I started to work as a consultant in the medical cannabis field, I got a lot of people that started to ask me, okay, I have money, I want to invest in cannabis. What is cannabis? I just wanted to invest in it. So I will walk you through a little bit of what is cannabis and what is investment in cannabis. On the other hand, I got people that ask me, oh, my back hurts, my head aches, what can I take? And on the third place, there was the people on the school and the kindergarten of my kids that asked me if I have some samples to give them. So I don't have samples also. It's something that, yeah, TAMIR has. He's the real person to be a friend with. So what is the cannabis? The cannabis is a plant, is a weed. We all know it. You can throw some seeds and you'll have a weed. You can smoke, you can be happy with. But we're talking only about the female plant with the flowers. and it has been known as a drug for many, many years. We know it from ancient Egypt and even further. So from one side, we have those amazing stories about how cannabis helped to people. We have mothers that are telling us about their sons. We have people with PTSD that are talking about it. We have cancer patients that are telling how it helped them. And then we have this plant, and then we have some science also. Here is, I love this slide. It's from Dedi Meiri's lab from the Technion. He's a really one of the best scientist people in the world, I think. He's working on the cancer and cannabis research. And here you can see very clearly there are 3 types of extract of cannabis, because cannabis is a very big word. We were talking about which kind of cannabinoid. There is not such a thing as cannabis. There are many, many things in the cannabis plant. So here you have 3 types of extract, 3 types of cancer, because cancer, again, is also a big word. There's not such a thing like cancer. And you can clearly see that extract number 1 and 2 killed colon and breast cancer, and extract number 3 killed prostate cancer, and none of them killed the healthy cells. And so you have the science, and you have the people that are asking for it, and you have the stories, and you have this plant, and you have this country, this startup nation, and you have this conference, and you can just see how many people are interested and how many companies we have. So it's very easy to have this slide and to understand that cannabis, it's a very big word. So there's no such a thing as investing in cannabis. This slide I took from another project that I'm involved in. It's an agri-tech fund that is working with a lot of companies. And you can see that the cannabis is also around, and there is a large ecosystem, especially here in Israel. Cannabis is starting from farm to pharma. You can see genetic, you can see companies that are working on genetics. There are so many problems in the cannabis industry. This is not such a normal plant that you can put a seed and you want to know what you have at the end of it. It's not like Advil that you go to the shop and you buy it and you can use it and you know exactly what you bought. So we have a lot of companies that are working on the genetic side, the growing side. There is a trend now that a lot of agri-tech companies are doing spin-off and starting to work on the cannabis to understand how they can use their own technology in order to use it for the cannabis industry. We have analytic, we have processing, and of course we have medical device and pharma to have the best cannabinoid-based product at the end of the way. So if we're talking about great companies and great ideas, we have to remember that there is this magic triangle that we have to understand. It's not so easy to invest in something that is involved with cannabis. We need to remember that we have to have a good team, a good management, and a great technology, and the research, training, and go-to-market strategy have to be perfect. So there are a lot of beautiful stories that we have to look at and to understand that cannabis, yet still, it does not heal. It helps with symptoms. It does not heal cancer. So don't go to a company that is telling you, my product is healing cancer. There are perfect sensors that are best for cannabis. Please check it when you're going to invest in such a company. LEDs, you hear so much about LED. I have the best LED, the best light ever. Molecular biology is a word that everybody uses and think it's the best way to work with cannabis. But again, what is molecular biology? So in conclusion, my time is up. Cannabis market is an ever-growing market. I have to tell you very fast. 3 years ago, I came here. I couldn't say the word cannabis because if I just said cannabis, everybody, no, we're not working with that. Please don't say that. Last year, I've been here. And I talked about agri-tech, and then people asked me, and what about cannabis? And this year I was invited to speak about cannabis in the stage, so it's a great thing to understand. A lot is still unknown, and we have all those people to research it. It's not a magic drug. Of course, not all what glitters is gold. You have to do scientific due diligence when you go to a company to understand what is the cannabis, what is the company, and what they're dealing with. And when you will choose the right company, the sky will be the limit. Thank you very much.
So So, continuing on that thought, where are we going to be 10 years from now? What should we watch out for, and what are the pitfalls that we could come?
We'll be 10 years older, that's for sure. Listen, we started here. I can speak about BioL Pharma for a second. We are running into the unknown. We are running a couple of clinical trials, phase 2. All of them are randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trials in different indications. We were lucky in 1 or 2 till now, but it was just arbitrary choice, which was based mainly on, let's call it the whys of the people, or big data. There wasn't any constructed way to find the dosage, the ratios, and so on. The data which we are basing our assumption is a very shattered one, but we are hedging in very different directions. And I'm sure that even if 10% of those clinical trials are going to mature and are going to succeed, that means that in 8 to 12 years, we might have a couple of drug candidates which are going to become drugs, pharmaceutical drugs. So BioL Pharma and other companies in this space are running in 3 main categories, pharmaceutical categories, which are neurological and psychiatry. The second is pain management, and the third is autoimmune diseases. And in this sphere of those 3 subcategories, we are talking about more than 150 indications, which consist of more than 20% of the market share of the pharma industry. So this is a big landscape.
I have to add, the cannabis industry, I heard about it, and it's literally like this. It's like dog years. So every year, it's 7 years, because things are happening so fast. 2 years ago, you had nothing. Now you have so many things. The research is developed very, very fast. You have so many clinical trials that already have some great results. So I believe in 10 years, 1, it will be commodity, and 2, as TAMIR said, we will have some good candidates for drugs.
Okay, anybody? Yeah, I know. Anybody want to say something quickly, or no? Okay.
Yeah, good.
I know you will. Okay, well, that's it. It's a wrap then.
Thank you very much.